Welcome into Live Good Dynasty. We're back again with a video today, just kind of recapping some of this last week. And holy hell, if I could have tight end week be every week, I'd be a happy fantasy manager. My name's Arlen. This is Nate. How you doing, man?
I don't even know what to think of what happened with the tight end situation. They just just reminded me how crazy this week was. Everything we went in for, but now we have 16 different tight ends score over 10 fantasy points this weekend, which is heard of based on how the first 6 weeks of the season went. So crazy. Other than that, doing great, man.
We had a bunch. There's over 15. I mean, there's 4 over 20 points. And I think I'm looking in. I think it's full PPR. I'm looking in. Maybe it's half PPR still. But 4 over it. And I think last week there was only 1. The week before that there was maybe 2. But then there's huge drop offs. And to put it in perspective, Mike Gesicki had a great week where he had 8 targets, 7 catches. He scored 11 points, and he was the tight end 11 or 12 or maybe even lower. He sucked in comparison to the tight ends this week, where usually he would be a top 3 or 4 tight end. So honestly, I heard on the fantasy footballers that can we do a running back week and a wide receiver week and a quarterback week, and can we do every position that matters? So not kickers, but every other position. Can we just do one for them? A left tackle week? Can we just do one for everything? Because it seems to give them quite a bit of a boost. And then Andrews and even Andrews and Kelsey coming through with good weeks. But that, and we're going to talk about a couple of trades, a couple of reactions to a couple different players. But before we get into that, just want to take a second and say, I think we're safe. Our 100 subscriber goal, which I would have loved to hit it by tomorrow, but I don't have to shave this beard off now. You don't have to grow that out for a full month. But if you want to change that, be a part of it. Our modest goal of 100 subscribers, be a part of that and subscribe and let us know what your thoughts are on some of the stuff that we covered or some of the stuff that we should have covered below. That was a dodgy intro there for a minute, but we got through it. All right, so we talked about tight ends a little bit. There was a trade that happened that we should probably cover as well. What do you think about the Diontae Johnson trade from Carolina to Baltimore, because they just didn't have enough weapons in that offense? They just needed to add another one. It was awesome move. 6th round and Diontae Johnson for 5th round. Baltimore got a good deal for a great weapon.
And I guess we have to take a look at the fantasy impacts on both sides of the house, right? So from the Diontae Johnson perspective, him going to Baltimore, I'm looking at it like we've already seen happen with Zay Flowers, right? I'm wondering, does he go and actually be a wide receiver? Does Diontae Johnson go in and be a wide receiver 1 in that offense, or does he become to the phenomenon of wide receivers not mattering in Baltimore? They've got so many other things going on. Now, we did watch the game. We see all the drop passes. People blaming the sun, it's not always there. There's some passes out there. Something about that elf in Cleveland that just causes people to drop passes. Happened there. So, it's exciting because you got a really capable wide receiver for Lamar Jackson now. It's only up at Lamar's game, and it's not like Diontae Johnson was lighting up the world in Carolina. He's going to a contender. Ups him up a little bit, but it's not as exciting potentially as it could have been going to other teams' names that were floating around in the trade pool for him. Receivers don't seem to be finding success out there in Baltimore. What do you think?
Yeah, so I picked him. I actually spent quite a bit of fab earlier in the season, when Andy Dalton took over, and I was excited about him. I was excited about him with Andy Dalton specifically, but I was excited not about that offense. Part of it was the offense that they would be down all the time, so they would have to throw throughout the whole game. He had 27% of the target share, which I think is 11th among wide receivers this year. It's hard to imagine a world where that you get better from there. And and I know that the target share won't be the same with all the players that you have in there, but you're going to an offense like you kind of alluded to that they just don't throw it as much. So are we really going to see? Are we going to see them increase it because they have another weapon? I don't know, because Andrews is now getting some targets as well. He's finally like warmed up. So we've got all these weapons there. Plus, they like to run it a lot. I don't know if they need to be including him in that way. I don't think it's. I'm not in a full panic mode if I have Diontae Johnson because I also think that there are some expectations in general, just or a lack of expectations there. I think he has a higher floor. I think his ceiling is kind of capped. And without any kind of injury, I feel that it's probably a flex consideration every week where he was starting to kind of just get into that weekly start range. I don't think that continues. I don't think it's devastating to the point of dropping, but I would say if somebody sees this as a huge positive, then go for it. I would sell him and get what you can for him, but I wouldn't be like trying to run from him personally. But I will say part of this is Xavier Legette was already somebody who, in the end of last week, whatever league that had him available, I had just grabbed to stash because he should have been stashed. But it wasn't for this. I don't think that I was really clued in on the Diontae trade rumor. So I just, in general, was grabbing him because he was starting to ramp up. And now that puts him in a really good position to get quite a large target share. And they must have felt confident enough in him to be able to move away from Diontae Johnson. So I think that one's a really good pick up or trade for low. And then I don't know if you remember, I forgot the other wide receiver rookie that's there in Carolina. But that might even be like
Okay.
yeah, that might be a pickup for some deep leagues just to see. Or in Dynasty, he might be available either cheap or just out there. Or maybe I'm just completely speaking. I don't know the percentage of ownership on him, but I'll take a look.
Redraft, he's at 5% ownership, so he's out there for you right now in
Yeah,
redraft
he's at
leagues.
57% in Dynasty, so he could still be sitting out there even after waivers.
I mean, he did get a touchdown this past week. He had over 70 yards receiving, got 6 targets, 4 receptions. You know, it's going to be those targets are going to go somewhere
Hmm.
between the two of them, and still on IR. See what happens. Maybe these rookies can make a name for themselves out there, and we'll see Jatavian Sanders show up finally when waiting for for some tight end love out there. Out on tight end weekend. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, he didn't get the memo.
The memo. I don't. Maybe to the rookies because Brock Bowers only got I think 10 points this past weekend. He was at the bottom of the double digit people. So maybe the rookies didn't get the tight end memo.
Yeah. It's a new holiday for them.
For
The
sure.
Another wide receiver to kind of talk about is Cedric Tillman's like coming out party. Last week, week 7, he had a pretty decent showing. It was the first time he had hit such a high snap percentage with Cooper gone. It was obvious with 12 targets, 8 receptions. They're going for him. I watched the last couple weeks because he came back in and had 2 touchdowns, so it even popped off the screen even more in week 8, and he again had 9 targets. So I went back and watched the film over the last couple weeks of every one of his targets, and the thing I noticed the most is one, they're trying to get him into the game really early, and most of the routes that I saw were like quick outs or curl routes. He would stop and kind of like create a little bit of space and just sit tight and gain possession. He covers the ball really well, and once he gets it, he's not like just looking to run right away. So a lot of those were like really short routes, and then as the game went on, there was a few more like deeper ones, and then they relied on him in the big moments. But the eyes of the quarterback on every single one of those, it was to him the entire time. Just watching him, he was the first read on those targets of his. So I think it's very intentional what they're trying to do. I think where it I think where there's question marks is Winston had a remarkable game with 0 interceptions. That's not normal. He had a great game in a pass funnel offense where you can throw on the Baltimore Ravens. So what I'm interested to see is now that people know Tillman's going to be the guy, and will those early throws that are a little bit more simple, is that going to be allowed? Because he wasn't double covered during those throughout the game. Then he got double covered a couple times on those deeper ones, and he happened to just break free, outrun them. I think the quick question is, is it for real and is it going to continue? And I think that it's for real enough that you should treat it as such. There's always question marks in younger wide receivers and like any young player when the defense now knows, are they able to shut it down? So that's the next test. But I think if they come out of this next game alive and he does really well again, then it's a case in point that they're definitely going to have the targets there. But is he going to be able to get that high of a percentage of them? I'll have to see.
It's funny because my daughter is in a 16 team league where
Wow.
she had Rashee Rice and Nico Collins in. So both have been out, both have been
Hmm.
gone. So
Hmm.
16 team league, you know that waiver
That's
wire is
the whole
pretty
team.
bare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to grab Cedric Tillman for last week before we went into this weekend. We had yellow Jameis Winston taking over and was hoping
Hmm.
for the best, and he like saved her weekend. She won the league, and then this week I had to go grab Legette. So we'll see with Legette and Tillman
Hmm.
are literally her starting wide receivers. So
That doesn't sound
just
as
make
bad
this
as it
stuff up,
did 2
folks.
weeks ago.
We
Yeah.
don't just make this stuff up, folks. We believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got started in my daughter's league. She's first place in the league. I'm so proud of her.
That's
5-1.
incredible. Nice.
And
That's good. That's huge in a 16 team league.
For sure. Exciting there. Tillman, never know what you're going to get out of Winston, so I'm super excited that we've got some excitement over there for you and your boys.
Yeah, so much so that Ravens got beat and they had to go trade for another wide receiver. When they lose to the Browns, you tend to reflect and make changes.
I saw something like Winston this weekend had more for over 15 yards down the field just this past weekend than Deshaun's had all season. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
exciting stuff.
And we scored over 20 points for the first time. I remember in week 3, it was like every team has scored over 20 points except for the Browns. And then we're sitting there and like week 7 goes by, we're like, it's still just us. Like we still haven't done it. And then, the first week where Deshaun Watson's not starting, we go over 20 points in a really fun game to watch. It's exciting. It's also sad because it's like, well, that definitely was the problem. We definitely don't have a quarterback.
No,
Now,
you've got
next week,
Jameis out there for you.
yeah, next week they should be able to carve up that trash team that they're playing. I'm hoping to get cool.
Number
Oh,
one passing offense against wide receivers. That defense against wide receivers. That team that
Oh,
they're
I
playing.
know. Yeah, yeah. I know. I didn't even think about it until this moment when I decided to be very offensive. But that our teams are playing each other we should have some kind of bet.
Yeah, we should actually do that. Should it be, since we didn't get to 100 subscribers, should we to bet?
Oh, who's
Cleveland, actually.
okay?
I
I'll do
believe.
the bet. Oh, that feels like such a one-sided because it's the Browns. So, but I'll do it. Yeah. If the Chargers win, I'll shave my beard, and if the Chargers lose, you grow that out for a month.
This is what it looks like after about 10 days, folks.
Oh, this is gonna be great.
We'll
Okay,
go a little bit longer. All
perfect.
right.
Okay, one
That's
more thing we wanted to cover: Jameson Williams. A little worrisome. He was suspended for a couple games, but then he got pulled over with, as I said, a bunch of guns, and then you jumped in and said 2 guns, both registered, one to him, one to his brother. Stop making a big thing out of this. I don't know the laws in Michigan actually if this is really that big of a deal, but there is an investigation to why he wasn't arrested. His reaction to the officer was when I asked, "Why do you have a gun?" He said, "Because I live in Detroit, it's for protection," which seems reasonable. But I don't know if that's going to turn into anything else or not. But right now, it's kind of that worrisome piece with Jameson Williams. If I'm a Jameson Williams owner, just because every year there's
I mean, every year there's something. Obviously we don't know all the details of what was going on with and whatnot, but just on the field, good news for LaPorta owners. Maybe he can continue to drive after tight end weekend. We'll continue to have some consistency as JMO is continuing to be out for this weekend at least, probably longer. for me as an Amon-Ra St. Brown owner, as he's a wide receiver that was going to keep on being himself. But exciting news for maybe Allen Robinson. Maybe we'll see Allen Robinson show up. Not so much.
No.
No.
It's just LaPorta won't suck every week. That's the resolution.
Well, as we're talking about this, can we talk about Lions game this past weekend? 52-point explosion for everything that it was. So I don't know how much to believe of the offense that happened at this past week, because we saw the coming Kalif Raymond in his return game. Didn't show up in the fantasy points as much because it all happened on special teams, but this dude went off and made a short field.
That's also how you earn that respect, to be able to get some more of that work.
Yeah. So maybe he gets some of that playing time to come in there. Catcher still had a game, even with them blowing out Tennessee. Jameson Williams is going to have to miss out the next couple weeks. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. It's 3 weeks in a row where he had like a startable performance in Kalif Raymond. Is it the new Lions? No, we knew that the Lions were really good. We knew their offense was really good, and that coming into the game, they had the highest win margin since the 90s. They were expected to blow out Tennessee, and I think it was Tennessee even scored first, and I think, and I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, well, maybe this wasn't for real. Like, it's not going to be the highest since." And then they went off and destroyed them and wouldn't quit. So I think it was expected, and it's an offense that you expect to do well every week, and they're a fun offense. Goff is in consideration for MVP this year for a reason, and he's got such great young, talented playmakers around everywhere he looks. And that's even with Jameson Williams off the field. So we'll see if Kalif Raymond might be somebody to kind of watch. If Jameson Williams is going to miss extended time, then maybe that's somebody who steps up. But I do think it's most likely that it's more consistent that Gibbs and LaPorta are used to bump them up to that higher tier. Like, Gibbs was used a lot, and we just did our re-ranking, and we were saying, like, this is somebody that could really hit that next level, but there's it's hard to put him up there with the best of the best because you got Montgomery there. But then if you take Jameson Williams out, your targets can go up a lot higher. Now, he didn't have an increase in targets this last week, but I feel that if they know that they're going to miss Jameson Williams for a longer time, it would be closer to what we had last year, where they had a more consistent higher target for Jahmyr Gibbs than they do right now. And that would be my guess. LaPorta and Gibbs benefit in the passing game.
Yeah, and that's fair, and we're seeing it show up for Jahmyr Gibbs, and it's not necessarily in the passing game. He's getting all those rushes. I believed in him the whole time. I kept him in my top 5. Not everyone on this chat did last week, but when we talked about running backs, but he was. I moved him from 3 to 4 just because of the Montgomery effect. But yeah, he's in there for more percentage of snaps. He's getting more of the rushes. And 32 points last week, 20 points this past week against Tennessee for a crazy run this past week. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to definitely benefit as that passing game increases towards him. It's been going down the last few weeks, which is crazy to think about.
I did have him really low. I had him at 8. That is too low. I think I would move him to 6. The consistency still has some other players above him, but I think I'd rather have Gibbs than Achane, and so that's not fair to have him below.
Yeah, absolutely.
Healthy call out. That's a healthy call out. All right, anything else you wanted to throw out for this last week?
The biggest thing is that, as much as this may be a joke, but Chargers are finally a passing offense, and I think this is closer to what we're going to be seeing throughout the rest of the season. Herbert finally has fully recovered from his ankle issues, as he had 48 yards rushing this past weekend for a couple of longer runs. Not to say he's a running quarterback, not making that claim again, but I'm just saying that he had the ability to scramble. He looked good scrambling back there, bought a lot of time to get that second touchdown to Ladd McConkey this past weekend. The realization that he's got a cannon for arm is going to be there. He's had the last 3 games over 230 yards. passing. Last week he threw for 350, where he was passing for under 150 the first 5 games. So I think we're going to see at least more balance out of that team. And DD McConkey is going to be, I think, the guy finally, and it's going to kind of play out the rest of the season that way. I think we're just seeing that connection, how they dreamed it up in training camp, and it's going to continue to grow.
I do see you have him in over Flacco playing Minnesota. I was just looking if your money was behind that, and in our dynasty you are playing him over Flacco, your star quarterback. So maybe.
That's a talk of things to come. But Joe, I don't know.
Old Joe.
I am on the fence. It's weird that this is a conversation, but where we are right now. But Joe Flacco is someone to watch out for.
Cool. Well, we're going to be recording and throwing out a few different episodes this week, and we've got a mailbag episode coming up, and we've got second half heroes is a big piece where a couple of the names that we've kind of brought up today are going to be making an appearance there. So we're going to throw that out a little bit later. So look out for mailbag and second half heroes, and see if some of these players that you can kind of make some moves to either acquire or pick up. They might be on waiver. They might be just easy trade targets that don't sound as sexy as they might look by the end of the season. All right, that's been real. Make sure you are throwing out that subscribe. Make him and I both commit to this shave and then growing out the beard, or leave it all up to the Chargers versus Browns and see what happens. All right, Nate. You froze, so I didn't see.